So for most of Episode Heresy, I've been running Titan and Warlock way more than I ever had before this episode, as I've been a hunter main since Destiny the Taken King basically. And with this episode Heresy bringing the powerful bolt charge arc ability, and especially Storm's Keep on Titan, and Warlocks having strong arc builds, I seriously thought the days of playing hunter was over. Until now, where Act 2 brought some pretty powerful artifact perks, giving me some great and fun reasons to hop back onto my hunter and give you guys a awesome build. But without further ado, let's get into this high damage resistant and jolting arc hunter build. This Arc Hunter build gives focus to the basic Arc Hunter subclass, but I will be giving small details for a prismatic build as well at the end, if that's something you're looking for as well and want to try. For starters, we're taking a look at the exotic armor piece we're using, this being the Gifted Conviction. Gifted Conviction improves your Ascension and Tempest Strike aspects by releasing bouncing explosive that jolt and damage targets. When you jolt the target 15 meters or closer to you, you will be given damage resistance starting at ×2, giving 25% damage reduction, ×3 giving you a 40% damage reduction, and ×4 giving you a full 50% damage reduction. With Ascension and Tempest Strike, this is an obvious and easy way to acquire these damage resistances, as both by themselves jolt targets when activated. The way the resistance is acquired is when you damage targets who are not already jolted will give you the next stack. This can also just be applied by anything that just jolts, such as arc grenades with the Spark of Shock Fragment, and any weapons that have jolting perks like Jolting Feedback or Bolt Shot. Speaking of fragments, we're rocking the Spark of Discharge to let you gain Bolt Charge when picking up Ionic Traces, and create Ionic Traces from arc weapon kills. Spark of Ions, where defeating jolted targets or targets with Bolt Charge will create an Ionic Trace. Spark of Shock to give jolt to your grenades, and Spark of Resistance for more damage resistance when surrounded. And lastly, Spark of Frequency, where you double your Bolt Charge stacks while amplified. And real quick, for grenades, I like going for the Blinding Grenade because they give a blinding effect for unstoppables for targets, and on top of that, they'll jolt targets as well. For your melee, I would go for Combination Blow or a faster recharge rate for your Tempest Strike. Speaking of Tempest Strike, this also gives you benefit to where defeating jolted targets will give you Bolt Charge, and for even more Ionic Traces on top of the arc fragments giving benefits to creating and collecting them, the new artifact perk Elemental Siphon allows weapons matching your super to create the elemental pickup of that element, that being Ionic Traces. And with this artifact perk boosted, picking up Ionic Traces will give you super energy, allowing very high uptime on your super. For weapons, I've been loving using the Refusal of the Call Glaive with the perks Replenishing Aegis and Unstoppable Force. Instead of Unstoppable Force though, I've been trying to get a close to melee, where getting a kill with the Glaive projectile will increase Glaive melee damage by 30% for 30 seconds, and causing damage with the Glaive melee or projectile will give it 5 seconds added at a max of 10 seconds for this buff. With Glaives being unstoppable rounds this episode, and Unraveling rounds being in the artifact as well, it gives it a great reason to use it. For secondaries, we're using the new Keranios, I don't know where they come up with these names, dude. The Keranios, I think, Arc Trace Rifle with triple tap and jolting feedback, letting us acquire those resistance stacks from just this weapon. This also gives the new artifact perks Beam Medic, where rapid trace rifle kills heal you, and Harsh Refractions, where enemies having a debuff that matches the element of your trace rifle will allow it to deal more damage. And for legendary trace rifles, this bonus damage is up to 50%, and with jolting feedback, this makes it super easy to activate this perk. And for heavies, we're using the Microcosm Heavy Trace Rifle, where it also takes advantage of Harsh Refraction, where this can activate from any elemental debuff, but this only gets a damage bonus of 20%. I would like to think this is because of its main exotic perk, where after your super has ended, you get a 20% damage buff to your weapon for 20 seconds, for a total of 40% when a target has any kind of debuff on them, and when you get the exotic perk activated when your super ends. This is paired very well with the Gathering Storm super, as you can pop your super onto a boss and automatically go into your Microcosm, so while your super is damaging the boss, you can be doing a substantial amount of extra heavy damage with the weapon as well, since Gathering Storm will apply Jolt onto that target. Add in the Limit Break artifact perk, where when you are critically wounded or have an elemental buff matching that super, it will deal an extra 30% damage, giving just an easy and useful damage boost on top of your Microcosm, dealing that 40% damage bonus. For another few options to use and swap for, I've been also really liking the new exotic Lodestar Arc Trace Rifle, which uses kinetic ammo instead of special ammo, which makes it super easy to use. Its main perks are Phase Converter, where aiming down sights makes this beam shoot in a burst mode, and hitting targets that have an arc debuff on them while aiming down sights will let you deal extra damage and cause them to explode in a blinding burst when you defeat them while aiming down sights. And Arc Alignment, where dealing any kind of arc damage will charge up arc alignment, and when at max power, Hold reload, which will let you shoot a jolting beam when hip firing, and aiming down sights will slow down the drainage of arc alignment. And lastly, for your heavy, you can kind of run anything you'd want, but I've been using the Watchful Eye LMG with jolting feedback to be able to proc the damage resist perks on Gifted Conviction while you mow down targets or deal sustained damage onto a single target. For a quick rundown on all the artifacts, in column 1 we're using Unstoppable Glaives, Anti-Barrier Sidearms, and Overload Trace Rifles. Column 2, place in Unraveling Orbs and Beam Medic. In column 3, we have Dielectric, Botanic Flare, and Elemental Siphon. In column 4, place in Flashover and Harsh Refraction. And in column 5, place in Limit Break and Defibrillating Blast. For a quick rundown on armor mods that I personally am using, plop on Arc Siphon and Heavy Ammo Finder. For gauntlets, use a Fastball, 1 Impact Induction, and 1 Focusing Strike. For chestplate, we have 1 Concussive Dampener and 2 Resist mods for whatever kind of enemies being dealt with in whatever activity we're in. For boots, 1 Arc Surge, 1 Recuperation, and 1 Better Already. And for class item, we're running 2 Time Dilations and 1 Proximity Ward. Now, before ending this video, like I said at the beginning, you can use this build, or more specifically the weapons and exotic armor piece, in Prismatic. I won't go into vast detail as this video was meant more for the Arc subclass, as it honestly works out better that way, but the only thing that makes it a little bit on the level of the Arc subclass, and maybe you just want to run this build in Prismatic, running either Shadow Shot or Threadrunner as your supers, and having the Facet of Purpose Fragment, so when picking up an orb, you get that specific elemental buff. So for Void, it's a Void Overshield, which 1 orb gives you half a Overshield, and for Strand, it is Woven Mail, which gives a 40% damage reduction on you for 5 seconds. Both just giving an extra layer or damage reduction on top of the Gifted Conviction damage resistance. But that's the basis for the high damage resist arc build. It's a very powerful and fun build to really use. I really enjoy using them in Grandmaster, as well as you can play pretty upfront with enemies as long as you're not, being too cocky about it. It's still Grandmaster, but jolting around with targets and bullet charge proccing very often. This build brought me back to playing Hunter, and it feels really, really good to be back. With that though, let me know what you guys think of the build, and maybe let me know what other kind of weapons you use with this. But if you enjoyed the video, please drop a like on the video, subscribe for more Destiny and gaming content. Other than that, have a great rest of your day, and thanks for watching. Peace.